Now, this week we witnessed one of the most appalling acts of political violence in living memory. Charlie Kirk, a conservative commentator and free speech activist, was assassinated at the age of 31. He leaves behind a grieving wife and two beautiful young kids. What was most disturbing was that Charlie wasn't advocating for violence or seeking to foster division. He was simply expressing a political opinion, a fundamental right in our society, and he was inviting those that disagreed to come and have a conversation. Now, if you've listened to the Joe Rogan Experience or Diary of a CEO podcasts, you might be familiar with the work of Dr. Saad. Dr. Saad's an expert in the application of evolutionary psychology in marketing and in consumer behaviour, also host of the Saad Truth podcast, and he's written that wonderful book, The Saad Truth About Happiness, 8 Secrets for Leading the Good Life. He was a friend of Charlie's, and just a day back he had this to say.
The attack on Charlie is an attack on every decent human being who lives in the supposed free West. Charlie lost his life because he represented the ideals of American freedom. He's a guy who decided in his teenage years to found an organization that has grown to be massive. In a free society, you're allowed to do that. He was always respectful. He was always a family man.
I'm honoured to say that Dr. Gad Saad, visiting scholar at the Declaration of Independence Centre for the Study of American Freedom at the University of Mississippi, is on the line. Thank you so much for your time, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, a couple of hours ago, my wife showed me a post on X where Erica, his wife, Charlie's wife, and Charlie were each talking about how they met each other and how their blossoming love affair happened. And as I watched this, I was filled with so much anger, so much regret. This is a beautiful human being who has 2 young children, who's only trying to incorporate positivity in the world. Someone says, I disagree with your views, you die. It's grotesque.
Yeah. How do you feel on the news this morning? Because many of us here in Australia wake up to the news that the suspect has been arrested, and indications are from all those who were present telling the world of the news that they've got their man. How does it feel for you? I listened to what you said coming in relation to what you'd ask the suspect, but how do you feel?
You know, I told my wife yesterday that they will know his name within 24 hours and they will catch him within 72 hours. And I don't think that's because I was prophetic, but I think there's been such a mobilization of anger, of focus. Because again, if Charlie can't be safe, then none of us can be safe. Because not only was he not saying anything that would ever justify such a response, I mean, nothing would, but he did it in a style that was so, positive, right? I mean, he's smiling, he's playful, he's respectful. And so, frankly, I was very happy that the guy was caught. And in a sense, I can't imagine how a 22-year-old who has all of the opportunities in the world wakes up in the morning and says, of all the choices I can make today, here's a great choice. Why don't I go kill Charlie Kirk? That's exactly what a parasitic mind looks like.
Tell me about that parasitic mind. I've listened to you a lot over the years, and I want to get a better understanding. I want my audience to get a better understanding of that. What is that?
So I was trying to explain in that book, how could it be that people can hold positions that are so removed from reality, that really seem as though you are zombified? And so I scoured the scientific literature and discovered a field known as neuroparasitology. So, for example, if you take a wood cricket, the wood cricket abhors water. It doesn't want to have anything to do with water. But when its brain is parasitized by a hairworm, it suddenly is willing to jump into water, commit suicide in the service of the hairworm, because the hairworm needs the wood cricket to jump into water in order for it to complete its reproductive cycle. And so that was my epiphany. So then I said, aha, I will now use that framework to argue that human beings could not only be parasitized by actual physical brainworms, but they could be parasitized by ideological brainworms, hence the parasitic mind.
Goodness. What would you like to ask if you had the moment to spend? I won't use his name, but what would you like to ask him?
I would want to get a step-by-step play of the cognitive processes that he went through in order for him to wake up on that fateful morning and say, of all possible choices I can make in life, this is the best one, right? So it's not just about saying, oh, he was radicalized and he was a political terrorist. I want to know literally the neuronal firings. What led you? If at 16 years old you were a perfectly well-adjusted guy, what happened? What is the informational, flow that you had that said, let me do this? That's what I would focus on. Okay.
I reckon we're at, and I'm sure you'd agree, well, I don't know, but I imagine you would, that we're at this stage in our society where you could be seen by someone as being wrong, but you're not just wrong, you're now wrong and you're bad. And we've had evidence of this in the political discourse in Australia through the week. So you're wrong and you're bad. How do we get here?
Yeah, exactly. Look, all genocides, all violence stems from inability for someone to dehumanize the other. If I simply say that you are incorrect in your position, that doesn't give me the justification to eradicate you. But if I say that your wrong position implies that you are akin to Hitler or you're a cockroach, well, then it allows me to squash you like the little bug that you are. So we've seen this throughout history. The way to compel people to take this tribe on the other side of the river and kill them all is to dehumanize them, to turn them into cockroaches. And so that's what's happened in our political discourse. We're no longer debating whether idea A or B is right. We're debating whether our opponents are human or not. That's a very dangerous place to be.
So if I say something that I would imagine is not that controversial, that there are, amongst humans, there are male and female, if I voice that, and as a commentator and broadcaster in this country, I'm very much on guard. I mean, we have all sorts of training and information pumped into us, but it used to be that you'd turn the mic on and you'd say stuff, and there were consequences, certainly. But these days, you could say almost the obvious, like, there are males and females, and you're all this anti-stuff, and you need to be dragged off air. It's a difficult world to navigate, don't you think?
Well, that's precisely why I use the neuroparasitological model, right? Because it zombifies you. Look, the most fundamental marker of biological reality is that we are a sexually reproducing species made up of two phenotypes called male and female. Until 15 minutes ago, the 117 billion people that had existed on Earth were perfectly understanding in that reality. But suddenly, we became parasitized by hairworms, and so the radio host in Sydney no longer feels self-assured to say women don't have penises. Again, that's not a good place for humans to be.
Brilliant. I want to ask you about your new book, which is not the reason why I've invited you on the show, but I've heard you talk about it, and I've heard other people ask you about it. This is Suicidal Empathy. I think I'm right in that title. It's not available yet, as I understand it, but can you tell my listeners what they'll find in it?
Sure, yes. Thank you so much for asking this question. Look, the parasitic mind was talking about what happens to your cognitive system, your thinking ability, if I hijack it and zombify it. Suicidal empathy completes that story by saying that for me to fully zombify you, I also have to hijack your emotional system. So look, empathy is a beautiful virtue. As a social species, we need to have empathy. For you and I to have a meaningful conversation, we need to have theory of mind. I need to put myself in your mind, and you need to put yourself in my mind. So that's good. But in this, Aristotle explained to us several thousand years ago that all good things in moderation, things have to happen at the right time and the right place to the right target. What suicidal empathy does is it completely eradicates this. MS-13 gang members become more important than American vets. The rights of homeless fentanyl shooter, addicts become more important than children playing in the playground. Illegal immigrants who don't share any of our foundational values suddenly are more important to bring into our shores than people that would otherwise assimilate. So it's empathy that is misfiring, and hence it results in suicide.
Again, I'm so sorry about the loss of your friend. Thank you so much for your time. And it's a really great thing for me, I have to say, Gard, to talk to you. It's an honour. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Cheers.